My name's Giles Waithe. A Whole Lotta Love is full of bombastic power and energy, resting on interesting techniques and approaches that make it kind of like a musical puzzle. In this video, I'm going to take you through the whole thing, starting with the rhythm, moving on to the lead, and then we're going to have a deep dive into the sound and how you can recreate it yourself. The goal here is to make it as real as possible, in the sense that we're going to try and play it as much like Jimmy Page did as possible. When we do this, we're going to raise your whole playing level, which means you can bring it into your playing and then let it loose into the world if you'd like to. Let's get into it. On the screen now, we've got a sheet for those of you who have done my rhythm code course. It's going to help you get this super accurate. For the rest of you, we're going to go through it bit by bit, and we're going to start with this main riff, so just have a listen. We're going to split this into two. We got what I'm going to call the riff bit, which is, then we got the chord section, which is. Let's look at the riff first of all. We're going to do a slightly simplified version to begin with. We're just going to do this. We're going to play string 6, fret 7 with the ring finger, and then string 5, fret 5 with the index finger. So that goes. And we're just going to bend this 5th fret a little bit. And then we just play that whole sequence twice. One more time. And you'll see picking wise with the right hand, I'm doing down, up, and then up, down. That'll help you stay in time with the chord section. Let's put that together. Now what we're going to add is one of those subtleties I was talking about in the intro, which is when he plays the bent fret 5 on string 5, he also plays string 4 open. So if you play them together without a bend, you can hear they're actually the same note. When you bend it very slightly out of tune, we get that wobbling sound. They're called beat tones. It's the sound of the two notes being out of tune with each other. And he bends that note in the riff, so it's very slightly out of tune, and you get that wobbling, which is a big part of it. Just have a little practice of that. You have to be a little careful not to knock that 4th string, so that it can really resonate freely. And then we just put it in the riff. One more time. So that's our riff section. Let's look at the chord section. Here we're going. I actually tend to fret a bar chord here. This is an A-shaped bar chord, and we're barring on fret 7 across 5 strings with the index finger, and then the ring finger on fret 9 barring string 4, 3 and 2. He uses the little finger, but I use the ring finger, so just use whichever you prefer. Now in this main riff, he doesn't play all the notes of that chord, he just plays the bottom 2. So you might choose to just play those 2, and you'll find that you should naturally just mute the top 3 strings, but if you don't, make sure you do, because you don't want to hear them if they're open. So you start this riff by playing the bottom 2 notes of that chord, and then we're going to do again a slightly simplified version to begin with, just playing the open string 6 like this. So you go chord, then open, open, open. Picking wise, we're going to do down straight for the chord, then up, down, up. So down, up, up. And you do that twice. And then hit the chord one last time. So we go. And then what we're going to do is add another one of these little subtleties, which is the muting, which makes it sound super cool. So what we're going to do is, if you just practice on string 6, use the right palm to mute. We want to deaden it enough so we don't get the full sound of the note. I'll play the chords one more time just so you can hear that clearly. Okay, and then we'll put the 2 sections together. let's now look at the intro. This is a little bit 2-for-1 because it's very, very similar to what we just did. It just plays the chord section for longer. I'll just demonstrate it. This is the reason that I play the bar chord, because I think on the first one he hits that. You can just hear the third come through, and it's a cool sound. He literally only does it once. He may have tried to do it other times during the song, you never quite know, because it would be awkward to play. If you want to do that, all you've got to do is hit the whole of that bar chord on the first part of the chord section. So you go. So what we get with the chords in this extended intro section is we get a whole bar of chords just going, just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you do the normal amount, which is 3 lots of chords. So we like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. In the second bar of the chords, on the very last chord, he hits the chord a bit more than normal. So this is what the whole of that bar sounds like. What we do on there is on the 3, you go 3, E, and A. So you just hit the A and then play the chord with the downstroke. So you go like this. So all the chords in this section go like this. And then we go back to the riff. Moving on to the chorus, I've got another sheet for you on the screen now. For those who've done my course, should make sense. And for the rest of you, here's a demo. Again, it's quite repetitive. We've got a bit of the played and muting bit, so. And then we've got this other bit, which is a D/E, meaning it's a D chord, so it's this A-shaped bar chord yet again. But instead of having the D in the root note where you'd expect it, it's got an E, which simply is just a complicated way of saying, just keep the bar from the last chord and just play these 4 strings. String 5, 4, 3, 2. Now the bass is playing the D underneath. He actually, in this version, the recorded version, he just plays the. And what we're going to do is 4 lots of upstrokes. So we go. One more time. So you're going to be moving your hand to go down, but just only playing the ups. So it's. And then we're back to our other chord section. And then we put the 2 together. After you've played the last chord of the main chord section, you're going to go straight to an upstroke. And it's worth noticing his muting loosens up a little bit there. And he does the same live, actually. He's not as precise about going, especially in the later versions, which are a little bit looser and more improvised and kind of have more of a funky edge than the original. So you can lighten up there a bit if you want to. Rhythm guitar is a powerful force. Just think of the energy you get from hearing a whole lot of love pulsing along. So why do so many guitarists misunderstand it, treating each rhythm like it's brand new with shaky timing killing the groove? Truth is, there's an underlying code that connects it all. Learn it, and wasted hours compound into mastery. Discover the Rhythm Guitar Code, the system for understanding and authentic results. It's easy to learn, you just have to commit. Click the link for a demo, stop wasting effort, and join the greats in unleashing your authentic rhythm. Right, let's have a look at this outro section then. This is the last time we're going to reuse the main riff and just change it up a little bit. Just have a listen. We've got one normal riff and then into this change riff, and it just repeats round and round like that. Let's break that down. We've got normal verse riff. And then we've got our riff, but we missed the last note. So we go one more time. So we're missing off that fret 5. Instead of doing that, we're going to play string 5, fret 9 with our middle finger and slide up to 12. I would say this isn't really a precise slide this. You might slide from other notes, but this is the one I aim for. If you go from like whatever, 7 or whatever, it doesn't really matter because it's the destination that matters, this fret 12. And then we're going to go down to fret 11 with the index. And what we're going to do now is play string 6 at the same time as doing that slide. So it's 6 and 5 together and we go. So from the riff it goes. One more time. After we've done this slide, we do 2 string 6s back to the muting. So we go. One more time. And then we do a bit of the normal chords. We hit a chord. So it's chord, mute, 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 play one more chord. Together it goes. Put it together. So I'll put that whole section together. So we've got normal riff, then outro riff, and I've called that whole thing the outro riff because it just repeats round and round that normal, outro, normal, outro. And just to clarify something on the arrangement, you've got one normal riff before that starts on the outro. So you've got the stop and then you've got this drum fill and then you've got a normal riff and then it just repeats those 2 round and round. I'll just demonstrate that. So normal riff, outro. That's all our main sections. We've got some other little chord sections as well. Here is the outro stop, as I've called it. So all we've got there is, again, our A-shape bar chord with the bar on fret 7 with the index finger going across the top 5 strings and ideally just knocking string 6, so you just get a mute. And then the ring finger on strings 4, 3 and 2, just barring fret 9. And you just let it ring out this time. And then we're going to go to an E-shaped bar chord on fret 5. So we're barring fret 5 across all 6 strings, ring finger on fret 9 of string 5, little finger on fret 9 of string 4, middle finger on fret 6 of string 3. So we're going. Then the final chord section is the solo stops. I've put the rhythm up here again for the people who've done my rhythm code course. If you can do them in rhythm, you could do down up on this, or probably find that he did down down just for the sound of it. And I do think he's up here because you can hear these parts of the chord. That if you were doing the bar chord here, you wouldn't hear them. So yeah, go for this. It's an E shape barred on fret 12, so bars on 12 across all strings, string 5, fret 14 with the ring finger, string 4, fret 14 with the little finger, string 3, fret 13 with the middle finger. So we just play that twice along with the drums, and you've got the solos in between. That's all our rhythm parts. Let's move on to the lead, starting with a playthrough. There are 6 sections to this solo. Let's start with the first one. We're going to divide this into 3 pieces. First part's this kind of rake. Then we've got a pull-off section. And finally a bend. So we'll start with the rake. So we set this up by playing string 2 and 1 on fret 12, barring across with the index finger. And then what we're going to do is play string 3, fret 14 with the ring finger, and we bend this. So we go. And then what we're going to do is rake across those 3 strings like this. So if we just do it with muting, it sounds like this. Try it again with the proper shape. And once you've done that, you leave the bar in place and you come back and play string 2 and then string 1, both on fret 12. So we go. And I tend to take the ring finger off after doing the first bend. So we get this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play string 2, fret 15 with the little finger, and then fret 12 with the index finger. So if we put that together, it goes. Let's move on to the next section, which is the pull-off part. This is all on string 3, so let's take that as red. We're going to play fret 15 with the little finger and then 14 with the ring finger. So we go. And then that note you just played is pulled off onto 12, like that. So we go. And then we're going to play 14 again and then 12. So if we put that section together, it goes. Let's put the first 2 sections together. And then our final part to this lick is the bend. So here we are on string 3, fret 14, and we play it like this. So what this sounds like is just playing 14, 15, 16. So we're aiming for that. We start by bending 1 fret, and then we're going to bend up a fret higher than that. So that's the simpler way to do it. If you're able to, what we do instead of bending up to that last note is use vibrato to wobble around it. So we go. Let's put the whole thing together. Moving on to section 2, here's our lick. We're going to split this into 3 sections. First section goes like this. Second like this. And third like this. Here's the first section. So we're going to play string 3, fret 2 with the middle finger, and we slide up to fret 4. Then we play string 2, fret 3 with the index finger. So we put those together. And then we're going to slide back down the way we came. So we play string 3, fret 4, again with the middle finger, and we slide down to 2. We'll put that all together. And then we add just one more note, which is string 3, open. Moving on to the second part, we go. That involves playing string 3, fret 2 with the middle finger. You pull off onto the open. One more time. And then we just play the open note 2 more times. So it's. And then what we're going to do is just put those 2 chunks together. So it goes. Let's look at the third chunk. This is the same pattern repeated in the form of a run. We're going to play string 3, fret 2 with the middle finger. And we just pull off onto the 0. What we're going to do is just repeat that pattern going across the strings. So we do it on string 3, then string 4. So we just put those 2 together. And then you go string 4 again to string 5. So we go. Putting that together then, so we go string 3, string 4, then string 4 again to string 5. And then if you want, you can hit the open string on string 6. It's hard to hear that because that coincides with the chord coming around again there. So I'll just do that last section again. What we do now is put those 3 pieces together. Section 3 of the solo mirrors the first section. Goes like this. We're going to split that into 2. Here's the first half and the second half. So this first half, we start by playing string 3, fret 14 using the ring finger. And we're going to bend that up so it sounds like fret 16. So it's a 2 fret bend. Like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play string 2 and 1 on fret 12, barring across with the index finger. And we're going to play string 2, then string 1. So we do our bend, then string 2, then 1. On to the second half of this section. It sounds like this. We start by playing string 2, fret 15 with the ring finger, and we bend it up twice. Now the first bend, we're going to stop by putting our plectrum on top of the string at the very top of the bend. So we go like this. And the second one, we're going to let ring out. And you can add vibrato like I have if you're able to. So those 2 notes, short one, then a long one. Now while that long bend is at the top, we're going to play string 1, fret 15 with our little finger. So I'll put that together, it goes. Then after we played string 1, we're going to let the ring finger down and then take the little finger off and do another bend. And this one you really want to let that ring out and do vibrato if you can. So if we put those together, it goes. So we've got 2 bends, string 1 with the little finger, and then another bend on string 2. So let's put the whole of that section together. Moving on to the 4th section. We're going to split that into 2 halves. First half goes like this. Second half. Beginning with the first half, we're going to play string 2, fret 17 with the index finger. And then we play fret 20 with the little finger. And what we do is we play it, bend it up, and then let it down. And as you can see, you might want to put your palm on there when you can to avoid the other notes ringing out. We're aiming for it to sound like this, which is actually 4 frets higher, so it's a 4 fret bend, so you've really got to go for it. I'll put those 2 notes together. And then we'll move on to the second half, which goes like this. So what we do for this is we play string 2, fret 17, and then we go to string 3, fret 19. And that's very short, that note, so it goes. And then we go to string 2, fret 20 with the little finger, and we just pull off onto 17. And I believe he does do a little bit of vibrato on there, so you can add that if you're able to. So we put those phrases together. And from the beginning, section 5. Once again, we'll split this into 2, and then, so the first half goes like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to play string 2, fret 17 with the index finger, and then string 1, fret 19, but we bend this one. So this is a 2 fret bend, so it should sound like this. So you bend this one up, and you put the plectrum on like we did before, just to stop the string. Then you let the string down and play that fret without a bend. So it goes. And then we're going to go 1 fret lower with the middle finger, fret 18. So we've just gone and adding in the first note as well. And then we'll go on to the second half, which goes. So we're on string 2, fret 20 with the little finger, then fret 17 with the index finger. Then we go to string 3, fret 19 with the ring finger. So those 3 notes. And then we go back to string 2, fret 20 with the little finger. There it goes. And then we finish up on string 2, fret 17 with the index. So that whole phrase is. One more time. So we'll put both halves together with each other. Jimmy Page, Hendrix, Clapton, all soloed with total freedom, and so can you. Yet when we unleash a killer lick, it's 50-50 whether it fits or clashes, and scales don't explain it. Soloing is a puzzle, and you're missing pieces. Today I'm handing you the exact system to absorb and create great ideas, fitting them into any song with certainty. It's easier than you think. Click the link for a demo now. Let go of the clashing chaos and free up your soloing before your next jam session. Moving on to our sixth and final section. Start by finding string 2, fret 17 with your index finger. And then we're going to play 19. So we just go. And then we're going to keep playing that same fret, string 2, fret 19 with the ring finger, but we're going to bend it 3 times. And at the top of the bend, stop it by putting your plectrum on the string. So it's like this. So from the beginning we go. I've muted all 3 bends with the plectrum here, but in the actual solo you just mute the first 2 and the third rings out a little as you move on to the next note. And then after that we leave this bent and we play string 1, fret 19 with the little finger. The bend on string 2 rings out a little here, but you'll find it dies away as you let it down. So we go from the beginning, it goes. And then to finish, we just play string 2, fret 19. And you can add vibrato if you're able to. So from the beginning, we go. On our chorus, we have got this little slide riff going at the top. It just goes. Just a couple of tips for slide is I suggest you go on your rhythm pickup on whatever guitar you've got and roll off the tone, meaning the least trebly you can get, because slide is very noisy. The other thing you tend to do is put your fingers down on the strings behind the slide. You can have it on your little finger or your ring finger, but you want to just be touching the strings rather than pushing down, and you want to deaden the notes. So what he does in this song is he just plays the middle 2 strings, so string 3 and 4, on fret 9. So you want to be above the wire towards the right of fret 9. And then you're going to slide down so that you end up on fret 6. So you go. But again, that's the fret wire towards the right of fret 6. So you go. So we're going from 9 to 6. That's all our lead parts. Well done for learning them. Remember, practice slowly, with intention, and you'll master it. Let's move on now as I show you how to recreate the sound of A Whole Lot of Love. I'm aware that most of you won't have the equipment that Jimmy Page had, so let's just do a basic setup to begin with. What I suggest is you start by getting an amp sound that has more gain than you require. I'll show you what I mean. Now that's the absolute most I could possibly use in this song, and it's more than I actually need, but I like to be able to control that on my guitar. So what we're going to do is use the volume controls here, and this is a general principle. The volume controls on your guitar control how much gain is happening in the amp. They do control the volume as well, but the gain change is the main thing I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do is really back off now. I'm using both pickups, so I've got 2 volume controls on this guitar. And just have a listen. We've got a much cleaner sound. I've put it down a lot there. We're down to like 4 and 3. So that's quite a, it's still got distortion, but it's a lot cleaner. Let's hear it in the riff. And what I'm trying to avoid is this sound. Like, it sounds too metal for this. And if there's too much distortion, it creates that sound. So I'm just going to back off now and clean it up a bit. Did a little bit too much. Try the whole riff. So that's not bad, and that's perfect for what I'm about to do to it, because we're going to add another element as we talk about the effects that Jimmy Page actually used. But just one more thing about this. This is a general technique I use all the time. So I have a little bit too much distortion on my amp, so I've always got it available to me, but I actually control it with the volume controls on my guitar. We're going to go through the full equipment list in a moment, but I just want to talk about one key piece of equipment, which is the Tone Bender Professional Mark II made by Solar Sound, which was a pedal Jimmy Page used a lot around that period. And I've got a version of it here. I think it's made by the original company, but I'm not quite sure. The main thing is it sounds awesome. And there's two key things I want you to listen out for. Let's just play the chord without it to begin with. And here it is with the pedal on. Two aspects I want you to pay attention to. One is it's got a kind of fizzy sound to it, but the other aspect is it sounds warmer. We've got what's called saturation happening there, and this is something that a lot of pieces of equipment add. Basically, any analog equipment adds saturation. So all the pieces of equipment he adds, whether it be in the playing side of it or the recording side of it, are adding this saturation. But you need analog equipment to do this. Digital equipment doesn't do it in the same way. If at all, but we can simulate it. Let's just have a listen to the riff with this fuzz pedal. See if you can pay attention to the fizziness, but the warmth as well. And of course I can control that with my volumes as well, so I can just add a little bit more. Let's move on and have a look at the whole equipment list now. Here's the equipment Jimmy Page used for A Whole Lotta Love. First up, we've got his Gibson Les Paul. It's worth noting that with its humbucker pickups, you're going to get more saturation than, say, a Telecaster. Next up, we've got the Vox Wah Wah. He uses this as a tone control, as we'll see when we get to the solo section in a minute, rather than like full-on wahing backwards and forwards. But again, it adds saturation to the sound, even if it's not actually being actively used. And then we have our tone bender fuzz pedal, which we've already mentioned. And next up, we've got a Vox CO2 Long Tom Echo. Now, you don't hear this in the main riffs that we've been learning, but if you listen to the recording separated using a stem separator, meaning we can hear all the separate tracks, you can hear there are actually some delay parts underneath the kind of freak out bit. You can't really hear them in the full recording because they're buried under the theremin, which is the main sound. But I think he may have had it activated because, again, this creates saturation and would act as a preamp booster to the amp. These sounds are kind of subtle when you listen to them, but they create a kind of warmth and a magic. Next up, we've got the amp he used, which is a Vox JMI UL730 guitar amp with a Rickenbacker Transonic cab. Jimmy Page called this a Super Beetle amp, which is actually a different model, and from the interview I think that was just his colloquial term for it. But the key thing that we need to know about this amplifier is it had a valve preamp but a transistor power amp. So, you know, in theory you would have got a lot of the warmth and the grit from the valves and just a bit more cleanliness from the transistor, but you still would have overall had a great sound, as you can hear. Moving on, let's look at the equipment I use to replicate it in the modern day. So I use my Gibson Les Paul, then my Crybaby Wah Wah, then my Tone Bender fuzz pedal, and then we've got my Marshall Valve State 8080 amp, which was made in the 90s, and I bought it in the 90s. And this, like Jimmy Page's amp, interestingly has a valve preamp and a transistor power amp. So it's a cool combination that can work. So I want to make a really important point to you, which is even if you had all the same equipment as Jimmy Page, you need to really pay attention to your ears and just change it as you go, just making sure it sounds correct and just adapt to the equipment you've got. So an example I have is my Marshall Valve State is 30 years old and it doesn't sound how it should anymore. Components have degraded and it's kind of at the point where it's not even worth repairing anymore because I've had it repaired like every 2 years or so. So the effect at the moment is it sounds kind of trebly. There's something that's not quite right. Actually, the Tone Bender offsets it quite well because that's very, very kind of dark sound. So it works all right. But I've had to do some EQ afterwards to counteract the fact that the amp's broken. So just do whatever you need to do with whatever equipment you've got to just shape it how you think it should sound. Moving on from the basic guitar equipment, the sound was then manipulated using the studio environment. Jimmy Page was not only guitarist, but he was also the producer of the band, which means he was in charge of the artistic vision. So he would have been deciding where guitars are placed, where the vocal is, and all sorts of things. He did this with assistance from Eddie Kramer, who was the mix engineer, and George Scantz, who was the recording engineer. Let's look at what they did on the soundstage to place the guitar sound.
Here's our basic guitar centered. It sounds powerful, but there's no sense of space. In A Whole Lotta Love, a massive sense of space is given by hard panning the guitar left. That part was then sent through a delay and reverb, which they hard panned right. The delay time is approximately equivalent to semiquavers, which is the timing of the chords. The reverb was most likely an ET plate reverb. This literally used a steel plate to create reverb, and they sound great. The interesting thing about them though is that they only create late reflections, not early reflections. Late reflections are the kind of wash of sound all blended together. They give an indication of the type of space you're in. So say, is it a church with very reflective walls, or is it a studio space where everything's really controlled? But they don't tell us where the actual sound source is. We don't get an idea of, is that sound source next to me, or is it 100 meters away? But the delay which he adds on does give that impression. It almost sounds like it's been reflected off a wall straight back at you. Okay, we've got our dry recorded guitar part here. Notice it's not panned at the moment. I'll play it and I'll just pan it over so you can hear that. Okay, so we're hard pan now. Let's just move to the mixer view. And what we're going to do is on this channel here, which is our guitar part, I'm just going to create a send to bus 1. And you see that when I did that, it's created a bus here. I'm going to send some of this signal over, and we need to make sure that this is coming in post fader, because this will allow us to have the original sound hard pan to the left, and then we can pan this over to the right. Let's just check it's coming through okay. Yeah, so that's coming through right. It's I would normally have a mono channel here, but because the reverb's stereo, it will change it to stereo in a minute. Anyway, but because we're hard panned, we're only going to hear that. I'm just going to copy in some plugins which I've already got set up. So we'll look first of all at this EQ here. So what I'm doing here is something called the Abbey Road technique, where what they would do when they were using reverb was to use a high pass filter to remove the low frequencies from what they're sending, because there's a lot of mud and a lot of things that we don't actually want in our reverb there. And then they do the same with the very high frequencies. I'm not doing that in this example. But in both cases, what you're doing is you're removing the things you don't want, so that only the things you do want go into the reverb, because reverb will make things even more muddy if they're things that you don't want. So you want to be really, really focused there. So I've done that here. You can just hear what I've chopped out here. If I just solo this send, and then what I'm going to do is just show you what I've removed. So there is a little bit of the core of the sound, so the root of the sound. So we're removing some of the powerful lower notes, but also there's a lot of mud below it, just kind of sound that we just don't need in this. So chop that out. And then one of the key parts of this sound is what almost sounds like a reflection from a nearby hard wall. So I wanted to just boost around 2 kilohertz, 2100, just to try and just bring that out a little bit more. Let's move over to the delay, and you're going to hear what I've actually created. Let's just have a listen first of all. I'll bring the original signal back in as well. So you can hear that the delay is coming in on the semiquaver notes, and that's what we really want, and it gives that feeling like it's just reflected off a wall back at you. So that's what led me to come up with this timing. It comes in on that semiquaver note, so it's 172 milliseconds, so you can use the same timing. There's not too much feedback because we don't want it to go on and on forever. And then I've also brought a little bit of the dry signal through, and the reason for that is it sounds like there's either a distance mic or they've brought some dry signal through as well. It's not much, it's mainly wet, but just a tiny, tiny bit. Let's move on to the reverb, because this creates the space a bit more. Now, as I said before, they were using plate reverbs, and plate reverbs don't have early reflections. Early reflections give us an idea of where the sound is placed. Is it near to you? Is it a long way away?
And in this particular plugin, you can remove all the early reflections and just put them back in. You can take them out, and it's very visual. That's one of the main reasons I'm using this plugin, the Renaissance Reverb, but you can easily use the built-in Chroma Verb, which is very, very good. So just do the same thing in that, remove the early reflections, and then we've got a time of 1.52 seconds, so it's fairly long. Just have a listen to what this has done. So that's created a great space. We've got the reflection in there from the delay, but we've got this wider space from the reverb. This is probably louder than you would want to hear, and it's certainly louder than you hear in the original, because it does interfere with the original pulse a bit. Just, you want it in the background, just accenting it. So I'll just turn this down a bit. But if you've got the bass and the drums and the vocals in there as well, you're going to want it a bit higher, because otherwise it will just get totally masked out. So you want enough so that you can just about hear it. So just note that we've got our chord stabs here, which are hard panned to the left, just like our main riff was. Now just notice I've sent some of this signal to bus 4, which is an auxiliary, which has just reverb on it. So we didn't put the delay on this time. And what we want here is just a very small amount of that sound coming through, because it's not very loud. But just have a listen to the chord stabs. Now have a listen to just the reverb part. So you can hear it's very low in the mix. We've also got the lead coming in there as well. So I'll play those two together. On the original, I'm not even sure if it is reverb on there. It might just be an extra mic, a mic in the room, or just a very small amount of the signal put through there. But putting reverb on worked in this context. Another thing to realise is when you've got the drums and the bass there, it really gets overshadowed, that reverb part. But it sounds good in solo, and it adds something, so it's worth putting in. Let's have a look at the solo now. So for this one, we've sent it to that same reverb, and we've also sent it to bus 2, which is our tape delay, the delay we were using before. The only difference here is I've made it 100% wet, and I've changed the delay time to 326 milliseconds. So you can do the same if you're recreating this. If you listen to it, you'll see it creates a real kind of pulsing sound. I'll just turn that up a bit so you can hear it even more. So that extends the sound, you know, off into the distance, and time-wise it extends it as well with the delays. But it's very, very low in the mix that you really want the main solo to cover it up. So let's just hear the two together. You know, the key focus is that main solo part. But we have another reverb put on there as well, which I've hard panned to the left. So this is very, very low in the mix, but you can just hear there's a little bit on the left side as well. So just have a listen to this. So very low in the mix that, but it is present, so it's worth putting in. Let's hear all of it together. There's another key component that really makes this solo work well. You'll notice the actual solo is right in your face, while these other chords thunder off into the distance. One of the reasons this works so well is because the actual lead playing is very, very trebly. And he achieved this by putting his wah-wah pedal down in the forward position. We're going to talk about what a wah-wah is actually doing in a minute. But let's just talk about it from a psychoacoustics point of view, which is the science of sound. When sound travels, it loses the treble frequencies first. This is partly because they tend to get absorbed first, but they also dissipate more, meaning they go off in different directions, so they're not as directional. So we are naturally trained by nature to think that a sound that's more trebly, with more high end, is closer to us, and that one that is lacking that is further away because it has travelled further and lost those high frequencies. So when he makes this really trebly, it not only just makes it trebly, it makes us feel like it's right in our face. while these other slightly duller sounds feel like they're off in the distance. So they've been really clever with manipulating the sound stage. Let's have a look at what is actually happening when he uses the wah-wah. So a wah-wah pedal essentially does this. So this is our EQ, and we have a spectrum analyzer. So what this is going to do is when I press play, it's going to show all the frequencies that this solo is creating. So I'll just press play. So we can see here, we've got a little snapshot here of all the sound waves that are being produced at that point. We can manipulate those sound waves in different parts of the spectrum using a notch EQ here, a bell EQ, rather it's a bit wider than a notch. And this is exactly what a wah-wah pedal does. It boosts a certain range of frequencies, and I've had a look at, well, I used AI, which told me that it's roughly these frequencies that his Vox Wah would have done. And what it's saying is we've got about something around an 18 decibel boost. So that's how much it's amplifying all those frequencies. The width of the amplification is around what we've got here, which is about a Q of 2.5, because we can manipulate this width here. So it's something like that. And then what a wah-wah does is it moves across the frequency range, boosting different frequencies. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit because it'll probably peak because we're adding quite a lot of gain there. But what I'll do is I'll move it. Again, the AI estimated that it would probably have gone from about 450 up to about 2.5. And I'm going to move this bell through the frequency spectrum, which is just going to do exactly what a wah-wah pedal does. So when we're to the far left, that's the pedal back. When we're to the far right, that's the pedal forward. So let's move it to about 2.5 kilohertz, 2500. And this is roughly where the forward position of his Vox Wah would have been. So you can hear it really just boosts that treble to a cutting level. So this would be what the wah-wah did plus a load more treble. So here's what it sounds like with just what I recorded, which is with the wah-wah. And here's what it would have sounded like without a wah-wah. So here I'm taking off the equivalent of the wah-wah to just hear what it would have sounded like without it. So it's not nearly as cutting. When we've done this, we've taken a lot of gain out. That's a really big cut, that. So let's just balance this. So let's see what the volume was without this EQ plugin. So it's about -14. Let's put it with it on. So we're really taking a lot there. So it's like we need to add 15. There's 12 off there, so we need to add about 3 dB on there. Okay, so we're still well below, so let's add another 5. So I've added 6 dB there to balance the gain. So it'll now be the same volume with or without the EQ plugin on. This is what it would have sounded like without the wah-wah. Here's what it would sound like with the wah-wah, which boosted this frequency. So you can hear there's a lot more treble there, and the result is it stands out a lot more. So this is a good trick to do with your solos. One little thing to keep in mind is that the fuzz pedal I was using is very, very muddy. So adding the wah-wah makes it really stand out really well. You may find that your amp distortion is already quite trebly, so sticking the wah-wah on might be really cutting. So what you can do though is just pull it back a bit with the pedal, and the effect will be it just literally will move down a little bit and not boost such a high part of the spectrum. You can do that, which will help your sound a little bit. In addition to skillful use of the studio itself creates a certain sound. Aside from just the sound of the room, the actual equipment affects the sound by adding saturation and other qualities, just like all the guitar equipment did. So we're going to go through that equipment now and we're going to simulate our own version that will add a similar effect using modern plugins.
So Whole Lotta Love was recorded in Olympic Studios in London by George Scantz, as we have discussed earlier. Here is the signal path that most likely they would have used. Of course, it's very hard to know exactly these days, but from the information I've been able to find, this is what they would have used. First up would have been a compressor, just first thing in the chain after the mic, just to make sure that it doesn't go too loud. Maybe a hard guitar hit or drum hit or something would be too loud and lead to distortion in the mixing desk or going down to tape. So these would have been PYE compressors, and here's a picture of one. The mixing desk was a custom build, built especially for Olympic Studios. This is a picture of the one that was most likely that time. It's very hard to get a clear definition of that. But this is the desk, and they sound absolutely amazing. The company was formed eventually by the guys who built it, called Helios, and they built some unbelievable consoles. The sound they produce really adds to the sound and thickens it. And then finally, in this recording chain, would have been what's most likely an Ampex tape machine. Again, going to tape adds saturation and compression, which is going to thicken and warm up the sound. Now let's look at how I've gone ahead and simulated it. Obviously, it's not going to be the same as a real thing, but it's as close as we can get using plugins. And luckily, Waithe have produced a range of plugins in partnership with Eddie Kramer, who was the mix engineer for Whole Lotta Love and many other amazing things. First of all in the chain, we've got the Kramer PIE, which is a simulation of the PYE. Next, to match the mixing desk, we've got this HLS EQ plugin. And this is designed to mimic a single channel of that mixing desk. And then finally, to match the tape machine, there is the Kramer tape machine, which also aims to simulate a tape machine like this, or at least one of a similar era. So that's roughly the signal path of Olympic. Obviously, there were other things such as the delay and the reverb and other things we don't know about, but it's roughly the signal path. But that was our recording session. We then would have moved to A&R Studios in New York for the mixing session, and this was done with Eddie Kramer. Let's look at the equipment that might have been present there. So at A&R Studios would be another tape machine to actually play the tape, to be able to mix it. This was a Scully 280 apparently. And then it went into another custom mixing desk. So this was a thing back then, you know, it was such early days that studios really made their own equipment. So another custom desk, which Eddie Kramer said was very limited, and then back into the tape machine. Plus it would have gone into loads of other bits of kit as well, compressors and things and delays and echo units, but I just kept it simple because it's really not a simple amount of plugins to put on here as it is. So that's what we've got there: tape machine, mixing desk, another tape machine. And then if we look at the plugins I've used, I put another Kramer tape on, another HLS EQ plugin, and then another tape. So that's all them in order. Let's just hear what it sounds like actually doing that for real as I add it to my raw guitar in Logic. Here's our guitar part. So we go into the mixer view. You can see I've got a ton of plugins on here, which reflects what we've just been going through. I'm going to just turn off the delay just to simplify it. So just have a listen without the delay. I'm just panning this guitar back into the center in post-production, just so you can hear it a bit more comfortably than just coming out of one speaker as well. Right, so we're going to turn off our plugins and have a look at them one by one. Now, first of all, I've put on an EQ plugin. This is the Pro Q plugin, which I've got to say is amazing. You can use any EQ if you want to do the same. So for this, I've just chopped out a lot of the low-end rumble. So you don't really hear a lot here. It's just a rumble, basically. I'll show you what I mean. You don't need that in your recording, so I take it out. I don't know if they did things like that back then, but I suspect they probably didn't. And it was just a little sharp, so I did a little cut at the top here. This has nothing to do with recreating their studio, but when you did record things onto tape, they would have sometimes done some work with EQ to make it sound right before it went to tape. So I'm sort of doing my equivalent here, really. So let's now look at the Kramer plugins that simulate our Olympic studios and A&R studios. So first of all, we have got the compressor, the Kramer Pi. So I'm going to press play so you can hear it without, and then put it on, you can hear it with. With. So there's barely any audible difference here. I'm doing a tiny bit of compression. It's like a decibel, if that. I've already equalized all these plugins, so they're roughly the same volume when they're on and when they're off. So we don't want to do a lot because we're adding so many plugins, but we're just doing a little change. It's just a slight change to the feel, a little bit more saturation, a bit more thickness, and some processing, so a tiny bit of compression. Well, let's move on to the next plugin. We're going to do the Kramer HLS, which is what we're using to simulate the mixing desk. Again, here I haven't done any actual EQ work. All I've done is add some gain to the preamp, which is this setting here. Let's just try and move that. Because this is the thing that actually adds audible gain. So here it is without. Here it is with. Let's move on to the next plugin. This is our tape, Kramer tape. So with this, we're not doing, again, very much, but have a listen without. Now with. Just a very small amount, a little bit of distortion, bit of thickness. And you get this plugin to add thickness by increasing the recording level, which you can see I put up to 3. And also messing with the flux control. I've just added a bit on there, which will have added distortion. So let's move on to the next plugin. And we've got another tape. So this one is to simulate having moved studios. So for the ones we just did, we're assuming we're at Olympic, and now they're at A&R Studios playing it off the tape for the first time there. So that tape machine will have added its own special feel to it, and that's what we're doing here. So this is very similar to the last one. I just haven't added to the record level this time, but there is a little bit of the flux, which will add a bit of distortion. So let's hear it without. Now with. There we go, on to the next one. So we got, this is assuming it's going to their mixing desk. We've got another HLS plugin without. With. This time I did a little bit less with the preamp there. The preamp control is really where the distortion comes from in this plugin. Just so you can hear it, I'll stick out full for a minute. And without. It's not a gigantic amount, it does. It just adds a little change to the feel. It's not like a distortion pedal or something. So it's one of the things you have to tune your ear into. So that's all our plugins. Let's just listen to them all on together. And let's just turn all the Kramer plugins off and hear it without. And with again. So it's not night and day. It's about that subtle saturation and that thickness, which over several plugins gives a nice change to the feel and thickens things up. Let's listen to it one more time. We'll add our delay and reverb back on. Another key guitar moment is the slide part, where we have reverse echo. This was done by recording the slide, turning the tape over, playing it through an echo unit on a spare track, then turning the tape back over. The echo we just recorded now precedes the slide playing itself and is reversed. Let's recreate this in Logic. Here's our slide part recorded the right way round. So let's just hear what it sounded like before the reversal. And we just got this end one as well. The first thing I always do with any kind of reversal is just copy the part. If you just duplicate it, it won't actually do a separate copy. It's really just the same part. So when you start reversing things, the original starts reversing as well. So just click bounce in place there to make sure it's actually a separate copy. So I've now got this original one that can just be left and won't be affected by anything. Now we've got our safe copy to work with. The first thing we're going to do is reverse it.
So we do that by double clicking, and then we just click File down here, go to Functions, Reverse. So that's now reversed. And what we need to do is put our delay on, which we've already got set up here. I'll just show you, it's 100% wet, and we've got a 250 millisecond delay on there. That's just me experimenting with what sounded right. Just have a listen to it. So what we need to do now is bounce it. So it's as if we recorded back onto the tape like they were doing in the original. So we bounce it. So this is now reversed, but with the reverb baked in. That's why we're bouncing it, because it makes sure the reverb's in there as well. And then what we do is we double click again, let's go to Functions and reverse it back. So now what's happened is it's reversed. So you can see the slide hits are more or less where they were, and the echo is now before the sound. So let's have a listen. So you can hear the build up similar to the original. Just have a listen on its own, you'll hear it's actually a lot louder. But all those little delays get hidden by the main riff, so that could well be happening in the original, I'm not sure. It doesn't come out when you separate it on a stem splitter, but the overall effect here is correct. So let's now add the panning, which I've got set up on another track, so I'm just going to copy it over. So you hear now that it goes from left to right each time it's played, and a bit slower with the long one at the end. So let's have a listen to that. So that's obviously very loud, so let's just back it off a bit. And there we have our reverse echo slide effect for Whole Lotta Love. Well done for making it to the end of this mammoth Whole Lotta Love tutorial. You're a hardcore player. Make sure you really integrate those approaches and techniques into your playing so you can raise your level and then let it out into the world. If you want more from me, please click subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. Finally, if this video has been useful for you, please click the like button. It really helps to support the channel, and it's going to help me go ahead and make more content for you. Thanks for watching.